Hey folks, Jessica here. I am back with another class review, this time of Elysian. I'm just going to preface this by saying I know this is a little bit late. I know a lot of them are a little bit late. What I think I'm going to do is record like 4 or 5 of these on the weekend and then just put them up like one a day or something over time. That's optimistic. But the thing I've been finding is when I try to record these like as I need them, I just find I don't have a lot of recording time. So that should make things more consistent. We'll see. Please bear with me. Thank you. Elysian is a continuation of the, Harpist, Bard, and Superstar line, which are among my favorite in terms of like in terms of aesthetic. I love the skins for these. I'm using the skin from the CD. Actually, I do not remember the name of the CD, but there is an idle skin you can get from a CD. I'll look it up if anybody's curious. Anyways, Elysian is a buffer class. It functions largely by buffing up the party's multi-attack, by lowering the enemy's defense, that kind of thing, and it's quite a strong class. Let's just get that one out of the way. The first skill is Concludiere. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. Don't speak Italian. Double apologies if that's not Italian. It boosts all parties' healing specs. Do note it's all parties, not all allies, so it will hit everyone in your raid. Like, everyone in your raid will get that healing spec buff. That's actually pretty strong if people are running stamina. It's a little bit annoying if people are using empty, but I've never actually had anyone really seriously complain about having an Elysian in the raid. Plus, that's a hard thing to control anyways. And, you probably don't need to worry about it. It's just, it is a thing, though. It boosts elemental attack. That's pretty good. Elemental attack is a little bit harder to get than regular attack, which you can get from rage and any number of skills from different characters. Last thing to know about this, and I always forget this, not that, this tab. Appassionato. It is a, It is a passive skill. It boosts Skyrealm Song's double attack rate. You're probably familiar with Skyrealm Song if you've been leveling Superstar. That's primarily the buff you'll use up until you unlock Elysian. You're not going to be using after you get Elysian, probably. Elysian has way better tools than Skyrealm Song. The part we do care about, though, is it boosts all allies' attack and defense based on the number of parties using Concludiere. That's an interesting one. I believe it stacks up to 6 Elysians, so like I think it's a plus 30% buff. Let me double check that. Yeah, 30% buff if there are 6 Elysians. It's really cool. Like, I'll be honest, I always forget it exists. I never notice it, but it's just a nice thing to keep in mind. I believe it's like one of the few skills that function like that also. So let's talk about extended mastery skills first. Dirge for the Dead is a big one. It hits all foes' defense. I believe it's a 15% defense down and 20% elemental defense down. Like the elemental attack up, this one is important because elemental defense down is a little bit hard to get. Depending on what element you're playing, you're not going to have easy access to this. Depending on what characters you have, you might not have any access to this. So this can be very powerful. Do note, this is not stacked with Miserable Mist, which is usually the go-to attack down, defense down buff. If for some reason you don't need the elemental defense down buff, then just take Miserable Mist instead since they don't stack, but most of the time you'll want this one. Call of the Abyss is kind of the signature Elysian skill. It is a huge multi-attack boost. Let me see if I can find what the actual numbers are. Okay. Yeah, it's a double attack, triple attack boost. It is an 80% double attack boost and a 30% triple attack boost with a harp. We should cover that real quick. Elysian can use harps and daggers. Their buffs are almost always considerably stronger with a harp. So, for example, Call of the Abyss is an 80% double attack buff. With a harp, it's only 40% with a dagger. And the triple attack, it's 30% with harp, only 10% with a dagger. So almost always you're going to want to use a harp. Even if you have just a bad harp, you're probably still going to want to use that over like a good dagger, just because Elysian's not really a class that does a lot of damage on its own. It's mostly about making your team stronger to do damage. The only time I wouldn't use a harp is if you flat out don't have a harp and the only thing you have is a dagger, then okay, use a dagger, but also consider using a different class. Just don't use daggers. There's a debuff on Call of the Abyss. It lowers your charge bar speed by 35%. That is honestly not a big deal. It's it's counteracted by the fact you're getting more charge bar because you're multi-attacking more often, and also it's very easily removed. Like any clarity will strip that debuff off. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's one more EMP skill. As usual, there's always, like, if you notice with these, there's always one I don't take. The one I don't really take on this one is Voice Unveiled. Grants Death's Grace and Revitalize to all allies. Well, what the fuck does that mean? You might be asking yourself. Death's Grace is an interesting buff. It converts any damaged HP over time, so like any dot, like poison, burn, etc. It converts it into health recovery. So it's incredibly niche. There are probably some fights, I can't think of any, that really have severe dots on them. But if there ever is one, or you're having trouble with a fight because of a dot, then consider Voice Unveiled. But like I said, it's super niche. I've never used it. Revitalize is just a heal over time, and if your health is full, it gives you 5% charge bar on that turn. So, other things to talk about, whoops, for Elysian, there's a bunch of... Where am I going? I'm lost. There's a bunch of bard skills you might want to consider also. Soul Soloist is a big one. These are not from Elysian, these are from Bard, so you take them as your sub-skill. This hits all foes debuff resistance, and it boosts all allies debuff resistance. I believe it's a 30-30 with buffs. Or sorry, with harps. This can be pretty big, especially on hard fights, where you need to land something like a Paralyze, or rather, if a teammate needs to land something like a Paralyze. If you've never played with someone that has Paralyze, hitting the boss with a Paralyze from Song is like often 2 minutes or more of just solid DPS time where the boss does nothing. So hitting that Paralyze can be absolutely essential to clearing some of the harder raids. So Soul Soloist increases the chance that Paralyze will land, because sometimes if the Paralyze misses, which is not an uncommon thing on a lot of fights, it is a completely different fight. Everything becomes way harder. So Soul Soloist pretty good. Let me look real quick. Other Bard skills to consider. Angelic Voice is a charm. It is... Charm is one of those things where it's either great or it doesn't do anything. So Charm is a chance for your opponent to not act on their turn, basically. I don't remember what the exact percentage is, but Charm can be very helpful, especially if you're like solo. Charm is something you also get from a lot of characters, so keep in mind that like you might not want Angelic Voice if you have a class that can, or a character that can already Charm, but it is a good thing. Like that last sub slot can be any of a number of things. So just feel free to take Charm if you can't think of anything else. I think one last one that you might want to consider is Clarity, just because Bards function as more a support class, and Clarity can help the whole raid. It hits all parties, removes debuffs from all parties. Also, remember, Dirge of the Dead puts a charge bar debuff on you. So you can actually, if you bring Clarity, you can strip the debuff off of you. So, Elysian, do I recommend Elysian? I very strongly recommend Elysian. Oh god, I don't really want to get numeric ratings. So I'll use alphabetical ratings. If F is the absolute worst class, and I don't know, SS. Let's go JP rankings. If SS is the absolute like top class to get, I would say Elysian's probably somewhere between an S plus maybe. It's a really strong. Like that multi-attack buff is huge. Elysian is gonna allow you to do way better in like boss races and stuff like that than you would be able to do normally before. And while I say they're not really a DPS class, that's just because they don't really have individual DPS skills. I mean, that triple attack, double attack, reverse that, double attack, triple attack buff does affect Elysian themselves. So if you got a fairly good grid, you're still going to be hitting for cap with Elysian. So it's strong. It's really strong. I'm not sure I would recommend this as your... well... Okay, so... I don't think I would recommend this as the very first class to go for when you hit 101. Just because I feel like for the very first class, you want to take something that is kind of essential for a raid comp, just so you can access content you normally can't before. And Elysian, like, in some ways, is good enough that it can kind of satisfy the need of being, like, an offensive carry, while also providing stuff like the debuff resist down and stuff like that. But it's not as cornerstone as, say, a healer or a tank, so Sage or Spartan. So slight spoilers for the future. I would probably recommend one of those two as your first pick, just because that'll allow you to access fights you normally can't before. And if you're playing with group, someone being able to play that is a big deal. Elysian, though, like in terms of DPS classes, this has changed a little bit with the advent of some of the EX2 classes like Glorybringer and Necromancer. But for the most part, it's really the best offensive class you can run for a lot of cases. In terms of elements, oh, and if you're soloing, Elysian can be very strong. Like, it can let you burst down stuff you normally wouldn't be able to take down. Plus, you can take a lot of supportive skills, like any of the stuff you rely on Dark Fencer for, so Miserable Mist or Blind or Gravity Wave on Elysian also. And since you have that debuff resist down, you'll be more likely to land those. So, elements I recommend Elysian for. Any element that has trouble with double attack, triple attack buffs. So, off the top of my head, if you're playing like Magna Earth, or if you're playing non-Whale Grid Earth, they can typically have problems getting double attack, triple attack. Like on this team, I'm getting double attack, triple attack from, well, this is a Whale Earth, this is a Titan Earth Grid, but I'm only getting I'm getting triple attack from Ugin's gun, the AK-4A, and I'm getting like, Dirt Field has a multi-attack boost. Like, that's it. There's just not that much multi-attack in Earth. Water's kind of same boat. Water, again, there's the Merglace, so Trium gives them multi-attack these days. But if you're not running a bunch of Merglaces, because if you're not Super Whale, then water can be another element that really benefits from Elysian. Dark is going to be a weird recommendation just because Dark is enmity most often, and it doesn't want a heal. However, I will point out that Dark has the best harp in the game. Just gonna say it right now, best harp in the game. This is the Quillen Lear. Its Oogie is it removes one debuff from all parties. It just procs clarity on the charge attack. That is so big. That's so big. And why it's really big on Elysian is, remember Dirge from the Dead, or Dirge of the Dead, your multi-attack boost has a charge bar debuff, and this will remove it. So you can throw up Dirge from the Dead, and then when you Oogie, you're just gonna strip the charge bar debuff. It's I cannot overstate how strong that Oogie is. Also, it's got, if that wasn't enough, it gives you immunity to skill seal debuffs, which can be big, and it gives you additional debuff success rate and skill damage cap, because all that wasn't enough. Quillen Lear is really, really good. I used to run this even though I did run, even though I do run Enmity Dark. Just, it's that strong. And then one last consideration, I suppose. Okay, two more considerations. Earth also has it's a Xeno harp. It has a Xeno sword now too, but its original Xeno weapon was a harp. It's got a heal and revitalize on Oogie. It's got this high voltage multi-attack rate buff. In addition to the normal multi-attack rate buff, it's a really solid weapon. Earth is probably the top team I would use Elysian on. And then the last one is Wind, actually. Wind, mostly a recent thing, got this last Storm Harp. And mine is only a lowly 0-star. Please, Grimnir, please. I mean, Wind's traditionally enmity element. I'm not going to get into enmity versus stamina right now, or whether or not hybrid builds are any good. I might do a separate video on that. That's a whole mess of math and opinions. The reason why I recommend this is more because its Oogie is boost to multi-attack rate. Let me look this up real quick. I think it's 2020. Just don't want to misquote this. Yeah, its Oogie is 20% double attack and 20% triple attack up. So that means, like that was stacked with Dirt and Dead, and you'll just have such amazing like multi-attack with the stacked with Dirt and Dead. And you also get a mirror image. Like this Oogie is really, really, really strong. So Wind is actually a solid contender for an Elysian class just because of this harp. So those are 3 really good harps. Like there are a lot of really good harps in this game. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Elysian for now. Recap, it's really strong. Probably top 3, one of your top 3 picks in terms of classes you should unlock. Though probably not 1 or 2, just because you do want those super utility classes like Sage or Spartan first. I'll probably get into those next since they're just spoiled, but they're important. And yeah, I would give it probably an S. Anyways, I will catch you guys later, hopefully sooner than this time. Bye.